It's an honor to be with you tonight. And before I jump into my main points, which is to speak on abortion and Black genocide and how it affects the Black community, I want to give you a picture of where I'm coming from personally. And this was stated a little bit in my intro. I do have a passion about exposing the lies of abortion in the Black community, but not just the Black community. So let me be clear. I'm fighting for all unborn babies because I believe all lives matter, because each and every one of us are created in the image of God. Therefore, that is where our value comes from. But I have a story that goes along with this because I did not always believe this. I was a senior in high school, and I remember sitting in the clinic of an abortion clinic, and my boyfriend, who I'd been dating off and on for about 2 years, was sitting across from me, and my best friend was sitting next to me. And I remember thinking in this moment, how did I get here? It was too late for that. When my boyfriend found out that I was pregnant, he said, "You don't want to keep it, do you?" And my best friend said, "You cannot keep this baby." And I honestly thought it was my only option. I believed that taking the life of my child was my only option based off of unknown fears. I thought my parents are going to be devastated. I was known as the good one in my family. And they would have never expected me to be in this situation. I'm going to be graduating from high school in 5 months. I'm supposed to go to college. All of these fears seem justifiable. You know what, in our culture, sadly, it is justifiable. I remember going to get a sonogram, and as I laid there, I realized the monitor was faced away from me. And I asked if I could see it, and the nurse was very hesitant to even show me. But as she turned it around, before I could even say anything, she said, "See, it's nothing. It's just the size of a pea." I was so uneducated. I just believed whatever the doctor and the nurse told me. I was given the RU-486 pill, which I'm sure you know is the chemical abortion. Now, this was 1999, so it wasn't even approved by the FDA because it wasn't approved until 2001. Shows how much they care about women. I was given these pills, and for those of you who may not know, you guys seem pretty smart, so I'm sure you probably know this, but the first set of pills that were given to me, the purpose is to block the hormone progesterone so that the baby would no longer receive nourishment or blood flow from me. Therefore, the baby starves to death and dies. And then 24 to 48 hours later, I was told to take the second set of pills in the comfort of my home. They said, "You just have some heavy bleeding, almost, kind of like a heavy period, and that's it." So 24, 48 hours later, I take those second set of pills, and they didn't work. I called the abortion clinic, and of course, they're not as helpful as they were when I initially went in. And they said, "Well, this is why we gave you a second set of pills. Just take those and you'll be fine." And just hung up. So I took the second set of pills, and I thought, something happened, but I realized 2 months later, while I was in school, I started hemorrhaging severely. So severely that I probably should have gone to the hospital, but I didn't tell the school nurse. I didn't even tell my mom when she came to pick me up that day. I just remember this going on from all day until the evening, and the last thing I remember is laying in fetal position in my bed, hoping this was going to be over soon. The fear of that and being so uneducated I could use those as excuses, but as I go along and I share more about this journey, I realized I couldn't just blame it on that. It's obvious by this part of my story that I did not have God's perspective about my own life, let alone life in the womb. But when my eyes were opened and truth did show itself to me, I was devastated not only by what I had chosen to do to my unborn child, but also the lies that are being pushed specifically with abortion and disproportionately to the Black community. There's a picture I have of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "Never, never be afraid to do what's right, especially if the well-being person is at stake." So once that truth came forefront into my mind, I realized that this isn't just about me anymore knowing the truth, that others need to understand this, and that's why it's my passion to expose the lies of Planned Parenthood and how they are disproportionately targeting the Black community. And it's a battle. It's not just a battle naturally, it's a battle spiritually. Because what is the most disturbing to me is the fact that the Black community is not outraged about this, or it doesn't seem like they're outraged about this. That genocide is claiming the lives of our most innocent. I had no idea about the inception of Planned Parenthood. I knew nothing about Margaret Sanger, and I'm sure you've heard of her before. But I have a friend out in California. Some of you may have heard of him. His name is Walter Hoy. He's the founder of Issues for Life. There's a slide for that. He said, actually, it wasn't his quote, it's someone else's quote, but I got it off his website, so that's why I'm giving him credit. That every Black person in America should be outraged that Planned Parenthood has their knee on the neck of Black babies and they thrive when they murder them. Powerful, right? When I think about the Black community, what breaks my heart and grieves me is not only are they not aware or they don't want to hear it, but they're sometimes shutting voices like mine down. I was supposed to speak at Emory University last year. And there was an article written, and I think I have a picture of that as well. There was an article written by College Fix. And they have a Students for Life group at this college. And I was invited to speak on the topic, is abortion a Black issue? Yet, a group of Black feminists, they're called the Black Feminist Coalition, accused the pro-life group of racism. I'm like, hello. And sexism, hello. By even broaching this issue on race and abortion. I mean, they didn't even give me a chance to say anything. They wrote this big article about it and got it shut down. We're still in the works of trying to get me back in. And I wasn't even supposed to be on the campus. It was a webinar, like through Zoom. And I finally understand, and I mean, I fully understand, as a Black woman in America, and in this time that we're in, what I'm about to say is not popular. I'm a Black woman, but I'm not oppressed. I'm a Black woman, but I'm not a victim, and I refuse to hang on or try to fit their agenda. And I'm not going to be silenced. I absolutely love being an American. There's no other place I would rather live. With all America's flaws, this is where I want to be. And so I think it's devastating that a small group of people would want to silence my voice because I don't fit their agenda. So, as I said, they are still trying to reschedule me for that. But if we're going to talk about systematic racism, look no further than Planned Parenthood. Dr. Dolores Bernadette Greer said, more than anything else, abortion is racism. And I was talking to one of your leaders, and they said you had Pastor Clenard Childress here one of the past years, and I've learned so much from him. I've never met him personally, but as I started to educate myself on the history of Planned Parenthood, he was one of my go-tos. And I'm sure he's told you about the billboard that he had that said, the most dangerous place for an unarmed Black person to be is in the womb of their Black mother. Why isn't Black Lives Matter standing outside of the abortion clinics? If Black Lives Matter, why aren't they doing that? Abortion is the #1 killer in the Black community. More Black Americans die from abortion than Black-on-Black crime, police brutality, guns, drugs, heart disease, or even cancer. Today, you could put that picture up of Margaret Sanger. Today, 360 Black babies will die in America. It's genocide. Planned Parenthood, from its inception, has had racist roots because of their founder, who was connected with the American Eugenics Society. She famously said, "We don't want word to get out that we want to eliminate the Negro population." And we are spending so much energy on false narratives, victimhood, when we have the greatest human rights issue staring us in our faces. Because they don't have a voice, it gets ignored. This is a real tweet from Planned Parenthood. If you're a Black woman in America, it's statistically safer to have an abortion than to carry a pregnancy. So your only option is for us to kill our babies? I mean, how many of you have heard the vice president say, women of color need abortion. Women of color need access to abortion. There's no lack of access to abortion for the Black community. You know why? Because 80% of abortion clinics are strategically placed in low-income and minority areas, within walking distance. Black women are 5 times more likely to have an abortion than white women. For years, in New York City, more Black babies were aborted than born alive. In 2019, a certain governor passed a law that allowed abortion all the way up to 9 months. To celebrate, I think I have the picture of that, they lit up the World Trade Center in pink. Planned Parenthood kills in 2 weeks what took the KKK 1 century to do. And it's because of abortion, the Black race has remained stagnant. We're not growing. Here's something else that is heartbreaking about the Black community. That's the church. We've been silent, or we have prominent voices like Pastor Raphael Warnock from Georgia, who said, and I quote, "I am a pro-choice pastor." Proudly stands on it. He's the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Georgia, and he has repeatedly defended his stance on this. On a talk radio show, he said he is dedicated to the reproductive justice and that it doesn't conflict with his faith. Last time I checked, my Bible said that we're created in the image of God. You don't have to be a pastor to know that. I believe Black pastors have a responsibility to their congregation to tell them the truth about abortion. This reminds me of the project Margaret Sanger had. It was called the Negro Project. And she actually manipulated pastors into saying that this is a good idea for our community. And I'll quote her design for this. It says, her Negro Project launched in 1939. It was designed to reduce the birth rate among the diseased, the sickly, the poverty-stricken, the antisocial classes, elements unable to provide for themselves, and the burden of which we are all forced to carry. That's how she viewed humanity. Margaret Sanger believed that Black people were ignorant and unable to make it on their own without some intervention. If you follow Students for Life, which I'm sure you do, maybe you saw my video of me calling out Lecrae. Anybody know who Lecrae is? Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't care what kind of platform you have. I don't have a big platform like him, but you can't say you're pro-life and then lead people astray with these false narratives that you're pushing. He said, what if Christians who want to reduce the number of abortions supported funding health care for women, dealt with the systemic racism that creates poverty for women of color, and addressed the income gap between white women and people of color? Number one, I'm not trying to reduce abortion, I'm trying to eliminate it. That bar's too low. We should fight to eradicate abortion and make it unthinkable. Because I guarantee he would not have that same point of view when it came to slavery. And so I wrote a piece, just pointing out the false narrative that he is pushing. A lot of times we want to blame all outside things to excuse ending the life of the innocent. Again, I want to quote Walter Hoy from Founders of Issues for Life. He said, and this is scary, he warns that because the Black fertility rate is well below the replacement rate of 2.1, within a few decades, African Americans may be an endangered species. I've even heard, and I can't give you if this is true or not, but kind of on the same lines of this, I read by 2038, if the Black community keeps aborting the way that we are, our vote basically is not even going to count. So yes, my goal is to wake up the Black community and reveal our true enemy. But I can't do this by myself. And you don't need to be Black to reveal this either. You don't need to fear, I'm going to say it the wrong way. Truth is truth. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. We just need to be bold and not be silenced by a few because they can't handle hearing the truth. Last year, there's a picture of this as well. I went with part of Students for Life. We went to Baltimore to paint Black Preborn Lives Matter on the street because we got shut down in DC and they arrested 2 of our students for using chalk. We weren't even using paint, we were using chalk. That was in DC. But we did get the chance to do it in Baltimore. And it was powerful because we're saying it's not just Black Lives Matter outside of the womb. And we're not saying we don't care about these Black lives. But if you can't care about the most innocent who don't even have a voice, who can't march in the streets, what are we doing? When 360 of them die daily, they need a voice. And so as a Black woman, I am so thankful that I am no longer under the deception and the lies of Planned Parenthood. And because I know the truth, I feel obligated to share this information with anyone who will listen. And I do believe powerful voices like mine are rising up. That it's not just going to be me speaking about it. I do think it's powerful, this coming from a Black person, I do. But I still don't think mine doesn't just have to be this way. But I also believe God's doing a new thing. And I will say delivery does matter. And I always say start with questions. Start with questions. See where they're at. Let them draw out their own hearts by trying to answer their questions. Instead of you telling them what to believe, ask them questions. And don't make it cookie cutter. See them. See the person, because we're all different. And find the ones that are like me, who are longing to hear the truth, because there are those out there who just need someone not to be afraid and enter into those deep conversations. So I don't know about you, but with the cell phones and everything else, everything's so surface level that we don't know how to have communication. We don't know how to talk to each other. We don't know how to go deep. But God created us to be in relationship with one another for a purpose. So please pray for me, for others, for other Black voices who are scared to say something. I was in that place, but God began to grow my confidence. The more and more I would speak, the more confidence. So giving me a chance to speak, I mean, that's doing more than you know. And I want to end before questions. I want to end on a really positive thing that happened. I didn't tell you my entire story. After I had that abortion, I don't know if did I mention my boyfriend broke up with me the day after I had the abortion? I mean, the day after he went to the clinic with me, he just stopped talking to me. So, then the 2 months happened, and then I spiraled out of control for a while, and then I became a believer. God came and rescued me from myself, I like to say, about 3 years later. And what I love about God is that He doesn't waste anything. And He can take the darkest places of our hearts and He can make something completely beautiful out of it, and only he knows how to do that. And that's exactly what he did. I started, a few years later, I started working for a crisis pregnancy center, and that's where I went through my healing. I went through Forgiven and Set Free. It was a Bible study, a 12-week Bible study, and that's where I took ownership for what I did. I didn't blame it on the fact that I was in high school. I didn't blame it on the fact that I was in a horrible relationship. What my abortion showed me was how wicked and evil my heart is apart from God. But little did I know, someone had been looking for me for about 2 years. And this person was looking for me because, similar to me, about maybe 8 or 9 years after I had gotten saved, God had rescued their hearts. And they felt the need to look for me because they wanted to come back and apologize. So that same boy that I had that abortion with came back almost 10 years later. And he said, I need to talk to you face to face because I need to apologize to you because of what I did to you is not right. And when we met, he said, it was easier to walk out of that relationship than have to face the fact that we ended the life of our child. So then I realized, wow, abortion does not just affect women, it also affects men. And again, he didn't give excuses either. He owned what he did. And less than a year later, he put this ring on my finger. We've been married for 11 years. And I think I have a picture of our wedding day. Or do I? I think I do. There's one picture of us. Maybe it's not our wedding day, but it's just the two of us. Is it? Do you see it? No, it wasn't a wedding. I think it was just like one of the photos. Yes, he's white. Get over it. But a really cool thing on our wedding day, we had this shadow box made, and we got to honor our unborn baby. We lit an extra candle for the baby, and just to honor our child, because we believe that every time we share our story, that our child is no longer a statistic, but God is using their life to help others not make the same mistake we did or to find healing. And now God has blessed us with 4 adorable kids. They're a handful. They look cute right there, but they're a lot of energy. That's what God does. And that's an encouragement to whoever you talk to who's maybe had an abortion, that healing is needed. And you know what? The pro-life movement, I believe, is more diverse than we think. I was listening to, I met a new girl today, part of your team, that was speaking today, and I got to catch it on my video, and it was so powerful. Oh, there you are, right here. It was powerful. That's what I mean. You're rising up. Your voice is going to touch other people, and it's just going to be a ripple effect. So keep speaking, keep standing on what you know is true, because God is using you, because it touched me. And the last thing I'll say is, one of my favorite resources that I came across when I was learning about the history of Planned Parenthood was MAAFA 21, MAAFA 21. It is a documentary that you can watch for free on YouTube. It's long. I'll spell it again, MAAFA 21. I forget the term of why they say it's MAAFA. It's a term, but it's long, but it's so informative. And I watch that, I still watch it. And it just gives you a history of Planned Parenthood, before it was even called Planned Parenthood, before it was called the Birth Control League, because that's what it was called before she renamed it, all the way up to how it's affecting us in the 21st century. So it's very powerful. And I mentioned Issues for Life, Walter Hoy. His website is full, like it can almost be intimidating how much information he has on there. But if you're really wanting to understand and try to educate and help the Black community, those are two voices that are really powerful. And obviously the Frederick Douglass Foundation with Dean Nelson is a really great resource as well. So I believe, as I said before, that Black voices are going to rise up, and it's moments like this that now you are educated a little bit more. I'm sure you've learned something you didn't learn before that's going to help to speak into the lies that other people are believing, and be bold about it. Do not shrink back. Do not let the culture dictate our voices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. Loved having you with us.
I didn't go over, right?
No.
See?
We have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
People have submitted, and please continue to submit questions if you have some for Tony. Okay, so let's see. The pro-abortion left seems to have a monopoly on claiming racism, so much so that whenever the pro-life right talks about abortion being racist, it seems to fall on deaf ears. So what do you think is the solution?
I think it's calling out what they're saying. Like, I always go, okay, so if they say, for example, so many Black men have, and I say, well, how many statistically, how many have died? And last year, in 2019, I believe it was like 8 or 9. And I say, well, do you know how many Black babies died today? And they usually don't know. So it's basically asking another question. And again, I said that before. If I'm just like telling them like this, they're not, they feel attacked and they feel like I don't want to listen to you. And you have to be careful too. You kind of got to read people. I'm not going to throw my, what is it, throw your pearls to, what did I say? If they're not willing to listen, you know, but if someone's really willing to have a conversation, going the question route, I think, is always the best bet. And I know from the pro-life movement that this is the most severe, more than anything else they're probably going to say anyway. So,
why do most Black people take the narrative that Lecrae tries to present? Why do they agree with what he's saying?
Because it's easier. It's easier to make excuses. It's easier to play the victim. It's easier to say, oh, it's this person's fault, or it's because of this, instead of taking ownership. And no one wants responsibility. No one wants to take on accountability for their actions. And I think that's why I even mentioned to him and said, this is why I'm healed and I'm free, because I've owned what I've done. I'm not blaming. And so I think a lot of people take that on because it's a lot easier.
So this is kind of a story someone experienced today at the march. She said, today, a pro-life woman at the march told this person that the woman isn't a second victim in an abortion because women deep in their hearts know that abortion is wrong. The person who submitted this question disagrees that that's the case, that a post-abortive woman is a second victim. How would you respond?
So they're saying, if I have this clear, she's saying that the woman is a victim too, or that she's not?
I think the person they spoke to said that the woman is not a victim because she knows it's wrong. She's choosing it anyway.
Okay.
But many pro-lifers would say, no, the woman is a second victim in the abortion. So how would you respond?
Yeah, I would say that I was a victim too, because they're not honest with you in the abortion clinic. When that woman said, oh, it's nothing, it's just the size of a pea, you're lying to me. My baby had a heartbeat, at conception, their DNA, it's unique to them. It's never going to happen for anybody else. So in that sense, if she's being lied to and being told this is normal, so in that sense, yes, she is a victim, because I knew it was wrong too. Everyone knows when it's not right, but you do it anyway out of fear, and that's what Planned Parenthood does. They feed off of your fear instead of trying to raise you above the fear like crisis pregnancy centers do. They dismantle those and they feed into those.
What did the abortion clinic tell you before the procedure? Any informed consent or options? Do you remember that conversation with their counselor, quote unquote counselors?
I didn't have counseling, but I do remember them giving me a new name, because I'm aging myself, okay? They would call your house to remind you of your appointment. And so they gave me a different name so that if my parents picked up, I would know who they were referring to. So I knew to call them back. And when I went in, I had no counseling whatsoever. They just took my money and brought me in for the sonogram. So nothing like that.
Did they show you your sonogram? Did they allow you to see your sonogram?
Like I said, they showed me for like a second, but she was just like, oh, no, it's just the size of pea, it's nothing. Like they have an agenda.
Okay. I think
That's
those
it.
are all the questions we have for you, but thank you so much for joining us, Tony. We're so happy to have you.
Thank
Give it
you.
one more time for Tony.
Thank you.